Because I Could Not Stop for Death is a lyrical poem by Emily Dickinson. It is about a woman and her journey into the afterlife with death. Death Be Not Proud by John Donne is another poem that focuses on death. This poem is a 14-line poem, meaning it is a sonnet. It is talking about death and how death is not so mighty, because it lies with poison and war and sickness, and it's a slave to fate. And in the end, men overcome death because when they die, they wake eternally, where death will no longer exist. Another poem about death is Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. This poem is a villanelle, which has 19 lines and 2 repeating rhymes and 2 refrains. This is not discussed in our textbook, however, this is what I found after doing research. The poem overall encourages people to fight when they know they are about to die, to not just go into the night, but to rage against it. Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry is another poem about death. It is a lyrical poem because it creates picture imagery in your head using rhyming words. It is a poem about not being sad when someone passes away, because they're not really dead. They're all around you, and they're not in their graves, so don't cry over it because they're not there. Another lyrical poem by Emily Dickinson is If I Should Die, which is a story about what would happen if she would die, which is just that life would continue on. Another poem about death is Death Is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland. This is a narrative poem that tells a story about a man telling his family what would happen if he were to die. Overall, he says that everything will remain the same because nothing is lost at all. They will laugh and meet again in the end. The Raven is a narrative poem by Edgar Allan Poe. It is a dark poem that follows a man as he's dealing with the grief that comes along with the death of his loved Lenore. And as he's grieving her, he hears a knocking at the door, and he hopes it's her, but it ends up being a raven who repeatedly tells him, nevermore, as in nevermore will he be with Lenore, because there is no afterlife. Another poem about death is My Spirit Will Not Haunt the Mound by Thomas Hardy. This poem is about a man who has passed away, and he is telling everyone that he will not be at his grave. Instead, his spirit will go to his favorite spot, and that is where they will find him. This poem can be considered a lyric because it produces imagery, however, it also tells a story. A narrative poem about death is The Mower by Philip Larkin. It's the story of a man who ran over a hedgehog one day while mowing and killed it. He then has deep thoughts about what it means to have killed that animal and how everyone should be kind to each other. I will be reading a poem by Edgar Allan Poe called Annabel Lee. Annabel Lee is a ballad because of the use of repetition of phrases. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you may know, by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child, in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love. I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kingsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. For my activity, I would give the students the theme of death, and then I would either provide them with a list of poems that they could choose from or allow them to do their own research, either with partners or in a small group. And then I would ask them to either read the poem that they chose to the class or perform it. And afterwards, I would ask them to interpret the poem so that we can understand what they gained as a meaning from it. I would do this to show that different people might gain different meanings and that poems often have more to them than what they seem. For instance, a student could do The Raven and find that they didn't think it was about never seeing a loved one again. So that would just show the differences that poems can have.